one of the things that you have to keep in mind is that Warfield believes that all that we need to build a theology is in Scripture.
Right. Yeah.
And he believes that we're never going to come to the end of what the Bible teaches in this lifetime. So he believes that we're going to continue to build constructively a theology. So progressive orthodoxy for him means orthodoxy. It's interesting. He says that. He says, basically, let's not have a misunderstanding. I'm talking about orthodoxy. I'm not talking about a sort of a move from orthodoxy to heterodoxy to anything else. This is orthodoxy. But orthodoxy takes all that the Bible teaches and builds it up. The interesting thing is when if you look at how he views just the time period that I deal with in this article, how he deals with the Reformation and how he understands that there's not just a time where theologians sit around and sort of pull out of the Bible what's taught there, but it's done often in the midst of controversy. So in the midst of controversy, that's when things sort of come to our thinking, and we have to work with what the scriptures say in light of the particular controversy to get an answer from the scriptures as to what we ought to hold, what we ought to confess with God. And so he's willing to give, in one sense, the reformers a pass, that they were in the midst of a really difficult time of tribulation and persecution. He looks at the Protestant scholastics and he says, now you guys are in a position where you can sit back a little bit and enjoy the fruits of the Reformation and do constructive theological work. And he basically says, you don't do that. He appreciates all he does appreciate what they do. In fact, I really need to say that, he's a shorter catechism boy. And all the way back in 1880 says, I basically want you guys to understand as I take this chair that these standards, I'm not signing them for any other reason than the fact that these are my own cherished convictions. I just love that. And he actually says that because he knows that there are men who are signing them, but they have deep reservations in their heart about those convictions.
Totally. They want a job or they want to be part of the club or whatever it is. Yeah. They're not subscribing ex animo or from the heart.
Yeah. And so what happens is he very much cherishes these things. Very much sees this as a wonderful document, Westminster documents, but thinks that the theologians who are constructing the basic theology here have codified a wrong theory of inspiration. You asked, how does he see himself? He doesn't say this. I actually think he sees himself as sort of taking what was bequeathed to the Protestant scholastics. He's taking that from them, and he's basically giving or providing a theory of inspiration that will do justice to all the constituent elements of what the Bible teaches about inspiration.
But doing so, I would suspect, with an understanding that there would be others after him that would take that and continue to develop it. Right.
Yeah, and I think that's the great thing about Warfield is he wasn't born with a beard down to here, and he's a man.
That'd be one ugly baby.
Yeah, right.
We got Benjamin Button. We got Benjamin Warfield. It's a little different.
And I think that here's a guy. Think about this. Here's a guy that I think understands himself to be in transition. I mean, that's just self-evident when you look at the documents and how they unfold. Sees himself to be in transition, is charitable to other men who, for instance, think about what he says about Augustine and Augustine's doctrine of Scripture, or doctrine of ecclesiology. He says, if Augustine had 10 more years, he would have worked out his own problem. So he's very charitable when it comes to this sort of thing. So I think he understands that when he gets to 1915 and writes, you know what, I'm going to put forth in my final article bearing as the best way to describe the mode. I think what he's saying is, and I think this kind of comes out, he doesn't write anymore. I think he basically says, I've done the best that I can do. And I think that I think somebody else needs to come along and continue the constructive process. Here's what I think he would be disappointed with. I think he would be disappointed if we went back and said, concursus is the way to understand it, and we sort of build up Warfield's understanding prior to 1915 as sort of the end all to the discussion. I think he would have said, that's not the progressive orthodoxy that I understand. I think he would have said, you guys need to take whatever I've done and continue to build on it.